So, I just got back from a holiday party at Sacramento, which is why I'm still kind of wearing a bit of business casual because as soon as I got back here, I immediately wrote the board for the full schedule of the San Jose Earthquakes because today is the day when the full schedule have released and that it's that time of the year again where I'm going to go over each game that the Quakes are going to be playing, do a little bit analysis in terms of some of the games and talk about which one is going to be hard and which part of the stretch is going to be probably the toughest for the Quakes. Here's a hint. It's going to be the last month of the year. Yeah, I prayed to the MLS gods so hard that we weren't going to get a top run in the last month of the season and that we won't get a tough September schedule. Seems like the MLS god kind of just laughed at me and decided to put us with a relatively tough stretch heading into the last month of the season. Although, I will say this, the September schedule, as much as we are going to have a couple of good teams that we have to face, at least there are a couple of things that is a little bit better than last year when it was truly a murderous road that we had in September, and that was really one of the biggest reasons why our playoff hope pretty much got derailed. But obviously, before we talk about September, let's talk about the first game of the season, which we already know that it's going to be happening on February 29th, and it's going to be between the Quakes versus TFC at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. Keep in mind, there is a lot of kickoff time this season for us that is kind of in a very strange kind of kickoff, and that I know in the beginning part of the season, we are once again going to have a lot of home games that is going to be happening in the daytime. Seems like MLS is kind of heading into a norm where they like to play their day games in their first half of the season, or assign most teams to have day games in the first half of the season. And then in the second half of the season, that's when all the night games will take place, which is understandable because the first half of the season are usually the time when it's the coldest, and that by the time we get to around June, or even around May and June and into July and into kind of like the dog's day of the summer, that's when the temperature does heats up, and which is why you're going to see a lot of teams that is going to be playing at nighttime instead of playing in the daytime. But the first game, of course, as I said, we're playing TFC and we're playing the defending Eastern Conference champion to start the season. Then we play against a familiar foe that we played last season in the second game of the year, which is Minnesota, and it's actually going to be on the same kickoff time as last year. Last year it kicked off at around 5 o'clock on the second game of the season. This year it's the same thing. It's going to kick off at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Before we do go on the road on March 14th when we face against the Union, and that game is going to be a 7:30 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. So this is kind of a little bit similar to last season too, where we have the first two games at home, then we go on the road, and the first road game we play is against an Eastern Conference team. Last year, I think it was the Red Bulls that we played on the road for our first game of the road trip. This time, it's going to be the Philadelphia Union. After that, we fly back home on March 21st, where we play against SKC at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And I noticed all the night games this season is actually going to be a little bit earlier. Well, actually, all but two home games this year that is going to be at Avaya Stadium that is going to be playing under the lights is going to kick off right around 7 o'clock instead of the usual 7:30 kickoff. And I kind of like that because, that means I can get home earlier. I can get home earlier to edit the videos, look at all the condensed match and all the action that I missed while I'm at the Quakes games. And then I will, of course, do a review video of all the action that happened in this match week. So it's good the fact that we have an earlier kickoff than usual for these night games, and that there's only two games that does kick off at 7:30, and that those two games actually happens in the middle of the week. And also we have two midweek games that is at home this season, and both of them is going to be in the early part of the season. In fact, both of them is actually going to be happening in April. But before that, as I said, we're playing SKC on March 21st, and that also marks the stretch where we are going to be having 3 out of 4 games to start the season, which is something that I think we did last season too, and we did not do very well. in terms of the first three games at home that we have out of the 4 games that we play, and that we went 0 for 4 that time. So hopefully this season it's not going to be the case. I definitely can see that, it's a bit of a tough stretch to start the season, but I can maybe think Minnesota might be winnable. Philly, we had some good resort there and some bad resort there, so that's a maybe. And then SKC at home, depending on if SKC can have all these players that they brought in their squad settle in, that could potentially be either an easy game or it could be a very tough game. But after that, we are playing against the Loons again. Seems like we always want to play Minnesota very early in the season and kind of get them done with, as we're going to be playing them on April 4th, and that's going to be a 7 p.m. Central Time kickoff. Before we come back home again on April 11, where we are going to be playing against DC United, and that's going to be a 2 p.m. Pacific Time kickoff, and that game is actually going to be televised nationally, and it's going to be televised on ESPN. Now, the reason why this game is going to be televised for ESPN is pretty simplistic reason. This is the 25th anniversary of the first ever game in MLS, and that you guys remember back in 1996 on April 6th, the San Jose Earthquakes, or back then it wasn't called the Earthquakes, but called the San Jose Clash. They play against DC United. That game was also broadcast on ESPN, although I think that game kicked off at 6 o'clock and that it was a night game instead of this one being in a daytime. But yeah, I expect there should be some special ceremonies on that game. I mean, I remember I attended the 20th anniversary of the first ever game in MLS when the Quakes play against DC United, and they did some special kind of celebration. I'm guessing maybe they might even think about doing a rollback event where maybe the Quakes can, at least for one game, wear their old-fashioned San Jose Clash kind of color, and DC United will wear their old-fashioned 1996 kit. I mean, that would be really special if that is going to be the case. But yeah, that's really the reason why this one is on ESPN, and that usually when you see national televised game, it's usually reserved to teams that is bigger in the league and more notable, or if it's going to be a very kind of interesting matchup, or it's going to be a derby matchup. And in this case, it's just a special occasion where this is the 25th anniversary of the first ever game in MLS history. Then after that, we go on the road against the Rapids, and that's actually going to be our first midweek game where we're going to be playing at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and I'm very gutted the fact that we're playing Colorado on the road and it's a midweek game, because I really enjoyed last year going to Colorado and watch the Quakes take on the Rapids, even though they lost that game. And I enjoyed having a chat with a couple of Rapids fans on the way back to the hotel. I mean, they were very friendly people, and they kind of also understand the fact that, despite the fact that we won, we still have a long way to go in terms of making the playoffs. Although I did ask them a favor, and they did kind of promise me that we'll try to beat these teams that can potentially be a threat to you in the playoffs last season. And they kind of fulfilled that promise, as the Rapids kind of really helped us out in terms of beating some of these teams and kind of keeping us in the playoff hunt, even though we went 6 games without a win and went on a 6-game losing streak. So yeah, that was kind of very interesting indeed. But after that Colorado game, we will be going back to the East Coast, and we are going to be playing against Inter Miami on the road, and it's going to be at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, and it's also going to be on 2DN, also known as, it's going to be on Twitter, because anytime when there's a 2DN game on, it's usually going to be, the English broadcast is usually going to be on Twitter, or if you activate the SAP button and of course listen the commentary in English on that channel. I mean, I don't mind the fact that the Quakes are always going to be on 2DN, and I know last year they were on 2DN for like 9 times, and there was 9 times the Quakes are on Twitter, which it's a good news for those of you that don't have CSN Bay Area or CSN California, where you get to watch the Quakes play whenever they are not nationally broadcast or on Twitter. But the thing is, you know, when you watch those Twitter stream, yeah, it is very, very poor in terms of the quality, and not to mention the commentary is just as bad as it gets. Like, it felt like high school level kind of commentary that I listened to those commentators do their commentary in the Twitter stream, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of frustrating, the fact that I'm going to have to hear those guys many times this season. In fact, I'm going to hear those guys 7 times this season, including at a stretch where we're going to have a stretch where they're going to broadcast our game 5 out of the 6 games that we are going to be playing. So, you know, unless I start learning some Spanish, I probably will have to be stuck with listening to those kind of annoying guys on Twitter while watching some of the game. Although some of those games will be at home, so I don't really need to listen to those guys when they're playing at home, and I can just go to Avaya Stadium to watch the match. But either way, that of course is the first game that is going to be broadcast on that network. And the other thing that I don't like about this, it's a 3:30 p.m. kickoff, which means it's a day kickoff in Florida, and you know that day games in Florida could be an absolute nightmare, and that even though it's April and it usually doesn't get as hot and humid as we get to the middle of the season, it's still very hot during the daytime, and that's something the Quakes unfortunately going to have to face. Now after that, we play against FC Cincinnati. We stay on the East Coast, and that's going to be a 5 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. And then after that, we return home to play against Vancouver. That's going to be a 7:30 p.m. Pacific time kickoff. After that, we play against Houston. Oh, and by the way, the Vancouver game is one of the 2 games that we are going to be having a midweek game at home. And I think, did I mention earlier that we have 2 midweek games at home that's going to be in April? Yeah, I forgot to mention that the other Wednesday game that we had in April is going to be on the road, and the other one and the final midweek game that we are going to have at home is actually not that far from here, and it actually happens on May 13 when we play against Seattle at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. But as I said, we are going to be playing Vancouver on that day, and then after that, we actually are playing on a Sunday, and we're playing against Houston at 3 p.m. Central time. So I'm guessing maybe this game is going to be national televised. I mean, I'm looking at the games that is going to be televised either on ESPN or FS1, and I didn't see this game being on either of those networks. So I'm guessing maybe FS1 or ESPN or any other network haven't scheduled this as a national televised game, because usually when you play on Sunday, that means that 9 out of 10 times, well, actually not 9 out of 10 times, but 7 out of 10 times you usually end up to be on national television. So it'd be interested to see whether or not if that's going to be one of those times where they're going to be end up on national television, or if it's going to be one of those unlucky 3 out of the 10 times situation where they're going to have this game broadcast locally. Then after that, we play against LAFC, and we return home to play against them. And actually, I shouldn't say we return home to play against them, because technically this is kind of an away game for the Quakes, because every time when they play LAFC at home, LAFC fans just basically take over Avaya Stadium. And I'm not even going to hide the fact that, you know, when you look at the last 2 years, and especially last year when they played the Quakes, I think around 50% of the crowd were LAFC fans, and I know the 3252, they took over 2 section of our stadium, which is probably the most away fans that we ever had, and that they were definitely making a lot of noise. So yeah, this is technically a home game for the Quakes, but at the same time, it's going to feel like it's an away game. And by the way, I forgot the C here, and this is not anything to do with trolling LAFC and leaving the C there. It's just basically I'm kind of tired, and when I did this, I did it very quickly, and they're going to be bound to be mistake that I made with some of these games. So then after that, we play on Wednesday, and we play against Seattle at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. You know, it's definitely brutal, the fact that you have to face the defending Supporter Shield champion at home on one day, and then quickly 3 days later you have to face the defending MLS Cup champion. And April schedule. I think April schedule is definitely all right. I mean, March I think is relatively difficult. April does kind of get a little bit better with the fact that we do play against some weak team. Although even though April is the time where we are going to be on the road more than I think any month that we are going to be on, or actually I think July is another month where we're going to be on the road a lot. And the reason why we're going to be on the road for so many times doing this stretch is since we start the season with 4 of our first 6 games at home, you're going to be bound to have a lot of road games that is going to come up. After the LAFC game, as I mentioned, we're playing Seattle at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Then we go on the road to play against RSL. That game is going to be a 7 p.m. Not Pacific time kickoff, but a Mountain time. I mean, again, this is just another example of the fact that I'm incredibly tired, and I wrote this very fast, and I made some mistake on the board here. But playing against RSL on this game, and by the way, I actually put a red dot here, and for those of you after watching roughly about 16 minutes of this video and thinking, what in the world is these kind of red dots next to the date? Well, these are the indication that I could actually be going to Salt Lake City to watch the Quakes play against RSL on the road, and that these are possible away days that I'm going to be doing for the Quakes. This season, I'm going to try to do a little bit more away days than I did in previous season, mainly because this season, as part of the season ticket holder package, it's going to be include complimentary away day tickets. So, if I am going to go to an away game, all I have to pay is the flight and the hotel, and also the food that I have to eat while I'm there, and the tickets will be covered by the team. So that's why I'm trying to go a little bit more this time. But at the same time, even though if you get complimentary tickets to go to those games, it's still not cheap to try to fly to the stadium where the Quakes are playing an away game, and also you have to even stay at the hotel for that day. And Salt Lake City, it's definitely not bad in terms of the pricing. I think I'm gonna fly out of San Jose, and it's going to cost around $150 to fly from San Jose to Salt Lake City. But we'll see if that is going to be the case, and if I'm going to do that. I mean, I'm going to lay out all the plans of my potential road trip this season of going to MLS game in a later video once I plan out everything. And I'm also going to include the one that I mentioned in this video, where these are the possible away days that I am actually going to be going this season. After the RSL game, we stay on the road, and I think this is the furthest we're going to go in terms of the away day this season, or not the away day, but the away games that the Quakes are going to be going, which is Montreal, as they will be playing against the Impact at 3 p.m. Eastern time, before we return home from this long flight to play against my most hated team in MLS, that is the Atlanta United, and that game is actually going to be at 3 p.m. Pacific time and going to be telecast on 2DN, and that's actually one of what would be 6 out of 7 games that is going to be telecast by this Spanish channel. So after that, we do have roughly a 2-week break because the international break is taking between this time, and I believe this season the Quakes are not going to be playing on a game where they're going to be playing on an international break. I know this is another, right near the end of March is another day for international break, and then I think somewhere in September, and not September, but somewhere late in August into September, that's another international break period. So that's the good news, the fact that the Quakes are not going to be playing a game during the international break, and that I think right now the league is trying their best in terms of not putting games during international break, because after all, we're one of the only leagues in the world to still have club games during international break, and I know fans are still up in arms in terms of that, and that it just makes no sense the fact that we should be playing a game against another opponent when half of our squad is on international duty. But for me, I can't really find a solution to this. I mean, unless if they come up with a solution to try to not play MLS game on international break, but at the same time still can finish the season before we hit to another international break in the playoffs, then that's maybe is the best solution. And if that is the case, it would be great. But right now they still haven't come up with a solution where they can make sure the schedule does end in October, while they also want to make sure that most of these teams that's playing on the international break will not happen if they're implementing this new schedule solution. But going back to this, on June 13th, I will of course gonna go watch the Quakes take on LA Galaxy at 7 p.m. Pacific time, and that's also on 2DN. And notice I said I will go to this game because I think this one is pretty much confirmed. The fact that I will be going down to StubHub, or Dignity Health Sports Park as it's called right now, to watch the Quakes take on the Galaxy. I mean, anytime when there's a Cali Clasico and that that Cali Clasico is going to be taking place on a Saturday, and a time when I can definitely go down there to watch the Quakes play on the road against the Galaxy, I would definitely do that. So this is pretty much confirmed of me going to this game. And then after that, on June 20th, they are going to go back home to play against another expansion team in Nashville, and that game is going to be kicking off at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Now, heading into the second part and heading into kind of the second half of the season, we then once again play against the Galaxy. This is the Stamford game, and that every season we play the Cali Clasico at Stamford, and it's right around this time that we play it, which is June 27, and that game is going to be at 7 p.m. Pacific time, and that is also going to be broadcast on 2DN. Now after that, we play on the 4th of July, but it's not going to be at home, instead on the road against Dallas, and that's going to be a 7 p.m. Central Time kickoff, and also going to be on 2DN, which I'm actually happy the fact that that game is a night game, because let's face it, anytime when you have to play either in Houston or in Dallas or in Texas in general, you better hope that you're playing against that team, a Texas team at nighttime, because in the daytime, and especially in the summertime in Texas, is just unforgivable. Like, it is just it's kind of unplayable in terms of playing games during the daytime. So I'm glad the fact that this game is going to be at night, although for a majority part of this game it is still going to be playing in the daytime, because the sun doesn't set until 8:30 on 4th of July in Dallas. Then after that, we return home, and we are going to be playing against NYCFC. That's going to be at 7 p.m. Pacific time, and it's going to be on 2DN. Before, on the 18th, I put another red star mark, and that this is actually a possibility that I can go on this away days, but I'm going to try to see if I can go to Portland to watch the Quakes take on the Timbers at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. I'm not sure if I told you guys, a couple of years ago I did try to go to Portland to watch the Quakes play, and I even had tickets to go to that game, but I took the train to go to there, and from this day on I will never take the train to go to an MLS game, because I learned the hard way that train was delayed 6 hours, and by the time I arrived at Portland, it was roughly about 9:45, and it was already near the end of that game, and that I actually missed that game, and I didn't go to that one. So yeah, that was a huge disappointment, and that I hope this time I'm going to learn from my mistake. If I want to go to Portland, do not take the train, and do not take the Coast Starlight to go up there, because in case if that train gets delayed again, I'm going to have that same situation that I had to deal with a couple of years ago, or not even something that I deal with, but consequences I deal with a couple of years ago. So that's a possibility that I can go to Portland on that day. Before, on 7/25 or July 25th, we're going to be playing against Nashville on the road. That's going to be a 7 p.m. Pacific time kickoff. And then we return home in August, where we play against New England. That's also a 7 p.m. kickoff Pacific time. And then on Wednesday, on August 5th, we are going to be playing against Chicago at Soldier Field at 7 p.m. Central Time before returning at home on Sunday on August 9th to play against Houston at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And I remember last year we had a stretch where we had kind of like a 3 games in 7-day stretch where for whatever reason we have 2 home games on the weekend, and then we had a midweek game that is sandwiched in there that we had to go on the road, and I think we had to go to Minnesota on the road for this midweek game before returning at home a couple of days later to play against RSL, and that I really did not like that kind of stretch, because why in the world are we just we just play a home game, and that was actually I believe right after the Stanford Cali Clasico, and then we just play a home game there, and that just 3 days later we have to go to the Midwest to play this away game. Only 3 days later we have to return home to play another game at Avaya Stadium, and it just does not make sense why we have to travel to the Midwest on a short week and then return home at the same time. And it seemed like we're going to have the same situation again where, after we play against New England, we have to go to the Midwest on a short week to play against Chicago, only to go back home again 3 days later to play against Houston. Although this time it's not going to be 3 days later, instead 4 days later, because this game is going to be taking place on Sunday, and it's going to be taking place at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And since this game is on Sunday, and that I already checked to see whether or not if this is on a national televised game, it's not currently, but maybe the full schedule for the national televised game is not totally released. So by the time they do totally release the national televised game, maybe this one would be included if this game is going to be taking place on Sunday. After that, we play against SKC on the road at 7:30 Pacific Time, and I believe this is also around the same time that we play against SKC on the road last season, because I remember it was in the middle of August that we visit there, and that it was right around the same time that this game is going to kick off compared to last season. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. And then it's also interesting the following game, and that last season after we play against SKC, we play against the Vancouver Whitecaps in the next game. Guess what we're going to do again this season? Playing against the Vancouver Whitecaps after we go to Children's Mercy Park and play against SKC. Although this time it's not going to be a home game like last year, and that it's actually just going to be an away game. And I'm very tempted to put a little red start on this game, because I might think about going to Vancouver and watch the Quakes play at BC Place. Then I remember that I was also thinking about going to the East Coast to do a couple of just for a couple of days. I'm going to be there to watch a couple of games, and that it's going to be taking place right around the same time, and that this is also the same time when all the rivalries is going to happen, and that this is actually going to be Heineken rivalry week that is happening. So it's great to see that the league is putting us with Vancouver in this rivalry week, because after all, this is the third wheel derby, and that it's kind of sad the fact that our rivalry has to be with Vancouver, and that it has to be a third wheel derby. But hey, it is what it is. I mean, we might as well just enjoy the third wheel derby until probably when Sacramento does come into the league in 2022, and that's when I think when Heineken rivalry week does roll around, that the Quakes are going to be playing against Sacramento during that time. But after that, we go back home to play against Dallas on August 29th. That's going to be at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Before we are going to get into September, and technically I'm going to even include this as part of what I think is the toughest stretch for the Quakes, as as I said in the beginning of the video, I pray the MLS gods that we won't get a tough September run to head into this stretch so that we can make the playoffs, and it seemed like the gods basically did not grant my wishes, which is not a big surprise, because it seemed like MLS gods always seems to hate the Quakes in some way and never give them some good luck, and that this is the case again, where we have a tough September run, and that all the team that we're facing in September is going well. All but one team that we're going to be facing in September made the playoffs last season. So we start off with FC Dallas at home on August 29th. Before 2 weeks later, we play against the Timbers at home at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Just a couple of days later, play another Cascadia team and the rival of the Portland Timbers, that is the Seattle Sounders, and that this is going to be a road game against them at 7:30 Pacific time. And I was actually really hoping that the Quakes, when they do play against Seattle, it's going to be on a weekend game, because I was really looking forward to try to go to Seattle and try to go to CenturyLink Field to watch the Quakes take on Seattle there, until I found out it's going to be another midweek game. So I guess I'm going to just have to wait until next year to see the Quakes take on Seattle at CenturyLink Field, and hope that that game is going to be on a weekend. But after that, we will return home to play against RSL at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Then we go to Bank of California Stadium to play against LAFC on the road. That game is going to be at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, and it's going to be on to the end. And I also put a little red start, knowing that I will potentially attend this game. And then I think I will attend this game if this game does have some playoff implication. I remember a couple of years ago when we played against LAFC right around the same time. I was in the beginning of the year, I was thinking of going to it because it's a day game and that I could potentially make a day trip out of this, until I realized the Quakes just pretty much sucked throughout the year, and that game was just completely meaningless because we're already out of the playoffs. So that's why I did not attend that away game. But this time, if they are in the mix of a playoff race, and that if they're going to be finding the same situation that they were in last year, which is, it's going to be heading into the final day and heading into close to decision day to decide whether or not if this team is going to make the playoffs or not, then I will decide whether or not if I'm going to be going to this game. And then finally, on the final game of the year, for the first time since 2017, we are going to be having a home game on decision day, and it's going to be against the Colorado Rapids, which in previous year I would say this would be an easy fixture for decision day, but knowing Colorado and what they have done so far in the offseason, I don't think that's an easy game for decision day. And that, I hope by the time when we play against Colorado, we don't really have nothing to play other than the fact that we already make the playoffs, and that we could potentially play for seeding, or maybe play for a home game in the first round at Avaya Stadium. But yeah, hopefully this won't be the game where it could really decide whether or not we are going to make the playoffs or not. And that maybe this could also be a game where it could be something similar to last year, where we were playing against a Portland Timbers side that was fighting for that last couple of spots of the playoffs, and knowing Colorado, and that this team could potentially be one of those bubble team that might be fight for the last couple of spot of the playoffs. This game could be similar to that. Although the good thing about this year is that at least we get a home game on decision day, and unlike last year, we have to go on the road against a team that we have never won against them on the road. So at least there's a good news in terms of that. And that, I think there's also good news, the fact that when you even look at the tough stretch that we had in the final month of the season, all the team that we're facing in the last 6 games of the year is going to be Western Conference team, and that we don't really need to travel a long way, even for some of the road trip that we're going. In fact, I think 4 out of the 6 games that we're going to be playing in the last part of the season is going to be at Avaya Stadium, and the only 2 that is going to be on the road is against Seattle and LAFC, which, that's definitely not easy to have those road games to be considered. You're going to be playing against the defending MLS Cup champion and the defending Supporters Shield champion on the road for the latter part of the schedule. But at least the good news is the other tough team that we're facing is going to be at home. And hopefully, if the Quakes can do what they did last season, which is for majority part of the season, they were very good at Avaya Stadium, except the beginning and the end of the part, and that they'll do kind of the opposite of what they did in terms of near the end of the season, where they kind of start not only losing on the road but also start losing home. I think we should be fine in terms of this murderous road, and that this does look a little bit easier than last year, where last year there was just, I think there was like a stretch where we had to play the top 3 team and we have to play them back to back to back, and I think 2 of them were actually on the road. Yeah, NYCFC and Atlanta, both of them were like some of the top team in the league, and we have to play both of them on the road. And it's no wonder why people was very angry, and that Quakes fans were very angry with the way that the schedule was put, and that I kind of also said last year on this day when I was kind of doing the same video that I'm doing, but looking at the 2019 season, that I hope the Quakes can schedule, or not schedule, but secure their playoff spot right near before that murderous row is gonna come. And I'm gonna say the same thing this year too. I hope they will either secure or getting close to secure the final spot of the playoffs by the time when we play against FC Dallas on August 29th. Because if we're going to still be in a position where we are going to be fighting for playoffs and heading to this kind of stretch, and even with the home games that we have doing this kind of stretch, yeah, I'm going to be very, very nervous, in that I have a feeling it's going to be deja vu all over again, where the Quakes in the latter part of the season is going to collapse and they are going to miss out on the playoffs, even though they look like they were going to potentially be in a prime position of making the playoffs heading into the final stretch of the season. But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Oh, I forgot to put this on the board, and I can't believe I forgot to put this on the board, because I remember this season is the first season in MLS where the schedule is unbalanced, which means that we are not going to be playing free opponent in the Eastern Conference. And the free opponent that we're not going to be playing this season in the Eastern Conference is the Red Bulls, Orlando City, and Columbus Crew, which, I mean, I'm glad that we're not playing the Red Bulls, because the Red Bulls is one of those teams that we tend to struggle against both home or on the road. But I feel like we could have, with Columbus, we could have probably won that, although I think this time it's going to be on the road against Columbus, so maybe I'll take that back of what I said. We might win that since it's on the road. And Orlando City, I think that could be a winnable game, although that one is on the road. Actually, never mind. I think those free opponents that we are not going to face, it's a good thing that we are not going to be facing those opponents, and I will say that, it's not an ideal kind of free opponents that we're not going to be facing this season, but it's not like what I was going to say that, oh, those are free easy opponent that we're going to avoid, and that why does MLS once again have to be mean to the Quakes and put these free easy opponent that the Quakes are not going to be playing in the Eastern Conference, and put the remaining harder opponent in the Eastern Conference that the Quakes have to face this season. But either way, that is pretty much it for the recap of just the full schedule kind of recap. I think I'll do a video talk about the 3 teams that each team will not be facing this season, and I'll probably do that video either on Saturday or Sunday. I know tomorrow I'm not gonna do a video because tomorrow I'm actually gonna be going to the dentist, and this is really one of the reasons why I'm doing it right now instead of waiting it till tomorrow, because since I'm going to be going to the dentist to do some deep cleaning, and that I'm gonna have majority of the day kind of feeling very numb on my right side of my jaw. Yeah, there was no way in the world I'm going to do a video tomorrow, and that I'm just gonna have to rest up for that day before doing another video on Saturday. So yeah, I'll probably do that on Sunday in terms of looking at all the team and the 3 opponents that they are not going to be facing this season. I won't be doing a video talking about the top 10 matchup that I am looking forward to this season, because we already know that those top 10 matchup that I'm going to be putting is going to be rivalry matchup for most of them. I mean, you pretty much know what are the most important matchup that's going to be happening. I mean, if you really want to know what I think will be the top 10 matchup that is gonna just look at the article that talks about the top 10 notable matchup this year, because I think all of the matchup that it's put on there, I can say that's my selection in terms of the top 10, and maybe I can tweak a couple of them and add in the matchup that I like, but still, I just don't want to do it because it's going to be very similar to what it was said in that article, and it's just mostly rivalry matches or matchup between teams that last season was like in the top 3, or just against some heavyweight kind of teams that is the most notable team in MLS and the most hated team in MLS against another team that is most notable and most hateable in MLS. But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Like I said, let me know in the comments below what do you think of the Quakes' full schedule. And yeah, I hope to see you guys next time.